What is PPL?
A PPL is pay per leads. It's like no fees, no subscriptions, that kind of stuff. You have a set lead cost, so you know what you're going to be paying for each lead that you get. Talk about the stigma on PPL leads. People constantly try to find where their issues are in their business, and so generally speaking, they will focus on the marketing rather than the sales and disposition process. The general offer that we make to everybody is like, hey, if you come back after 6 months or 3 months of working with us and you say, hey, these leads sucked, we're going to give you big credit. We're just going to keep rolling the dice and stuff.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we have Andrew Kolodgie with Property Leads, and Andrew flew in from Boulder, Colorado to talk about how they're generating 3,500 SEO leads every month, each and every month. Guys, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. And guys, if you get value out of the show, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So first question is, what was your life like right before you got into business?
Before into business, I was working for the Navy as a software engineer, civilian, not enlisted or an officer. And I had a very W-2, very corporate type job, windowless office, that kind of stuff. Definitely had a drive to get out of that environment as soon as possible. And wanted to find a way to get rental properties. And we bought one and we were like, that wasn't the greatest deal ever. So we're trying to figure out how to get deeper and deeper discounts, and we kind of fell down the wholesaling rabbit hole and then cold calling, and then we're like, oh, we're not going to do that, and then ended up on the digital marketing side.
So you did buy a property though. You said it wasn't a good deal.
Well, it was off the MLS. I mean, it wasn't a bad deal, but it was it's not something you would be able to flip or really wholesale. It was like a buy and hold type property.
But that's not kind of how we start, right? Because you were still working your W-2 at this point.
Yes, that's fair. So at the time when we first bought that rental property, I was trying to transition out. So I bought off the MLS. We had 12 people living in it, including ourselves, and we lived in like an 8x8 room shared with my spouse. So we're slumming it in that way.
When was this?
2020 is when we bought that first property.
2020, so it's not even that long ago.
No.
Okay, so you bought the property off the MLS, had a realtor, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Was this now a property that you were intending to sell or keep as a rental? What was the vision?
Keep as a rental, and the goal at the time was to just build this massive rental portfolio. But being in the DC, Maryland, Virginia market, it's more difficult to find deals on the MLS that are cost effective. Hit that 1% rule or whatever it might be.
Oh yeah, you're not hitting the 1% rule over there.
Yeah, no way. But if you're getting going direct to seller, you might have the opportunity to do that. And so that was our next goal, was how do we get direct to seller? How do we get that better deal?
So you buy your first property, you're not happy with the numbers, and you say, okay, we're going to jump right into direct to seller marketing.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like, there was not like, hey, realtor, do a better job, find us better deals. You just went straight to.
No, looking backwards, we got a really good deal off the MLS at the time, and I don't think it was going to get much better than that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you jumped down this rabbit hole for wholesaling.
Yeah. So we actually launched a Carrot site. I think it was January maybe of 2021 or March. I think January of 2021. And we spent a long time trying to figure out the SEO game. And if I were to start again, I would not recommend SEO being my first marketing strategy. It takes way too long to get set up, too intricate. Not a great way to become a real estate investor. A really good way to become a marketer though. And learn a lot of really hard lessons, spend a lot of time, a lot of mistakes, a lot of money. And then through that process, we grew that site from 0 leads a month to 60 leads a month, all inbound, all organic. And that's where we started to, pick up real momentum. And that process for us took about a year because of all the mistakes we were making. But towards the end of that process, we started bringing real revenue. My spouse quit her job. I started to quit my job, and the train track started rolling.
All from SEO?
All from SEO. Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah.
You said you made some large lessons, or you learned some large lessons along the way.
Yeah, I mean the first, if we're going down the SEO rabbit hole, the first lesson I learned was Google has a very strong perspective of what city pages you should have.
What pages?
Like what city pages you should have. So when you have a site, you have generally like your homepage, your header pages, like how it works, about us, our company, that kind of stuff. And then you'll have maybe your city pages and your state page. And what we found is that people were launching city pages willy-nilly, and we just did the same thing because we didn't really know any better. And what we found is Google has a very, very strong perspective of what they want for city pages. And the way to figure that out is if you search every single zip code, search from every single zip code in your geographic area, search the same term, let's say like we buy houses, different city pages will pop up from the generic search term and they'll come up locationally. So if you do that, you'll end up with a variety of different city pages, and that list will never map the normal list that you think would be there, if that makes sense.
You're saying because the results would be highly dependent on where the person's actually living.
There's that element. Then there's also the element of like Google will change throughout the month, throughout the year, what they believe are relevant city pages and what they believe are not relevant city pages.
So the constant evolution is kind of like the way I felt for some time, like you're playing this whack-a-mole game.
For sure. Except in this way you could map the whack-a-mole effectively, and you can determine what city pages you need and don't need. And so once we did that, I mean, we were able to strip away a lot of pages. And what we found also, and this is the second evolution of that first site, was if you have too many pages that are not ranking well, they'll eventually get de-indexed. So they'll show up in Google Search Consoles like crawled, currently not indexed, or discovered, currently not indexed. And then when that happens, if about 50% or more of your pages in total end up in that boat, the site won't do anything. And so most people end up in one of those two pockets. They'll put out too many city pages. They'll put out like a really good example is like they'll have a Boston city page and then a South Boston city page. And those are duplicative. That doesn't exist. It's just Boston to Google. And so remove the city pages that you don't need, add the city pages you do need, remove that level of duplicate content, or really, and additionally the content that is getting filtered out, and you end up with a site that can go from like 0 to 60 really, really fast.
So, one of the things you hear people say is you got to create a lot of content.
For sure.
Make a lot of pages, right? Like a blog.
Yeah.
Right.
Disagree, but yeah.
So you disagree?
Yeah. The issue is you have to create the content that Google actually wants to see, not just content in general. And we saw this originally with what people would do is they say, okay, well, I'm going to make an article on 3 ways to sell your house in foreclosure. Well, that's not a keyword. That doesn't mean anything. That's poo-poo. And so, the real article you're trying to write is, can I sell my house in foreclosure in Colorado? And if you search, can I sell my house in foreclosure on Google from whatever state you're in, the first article is always going to be, can I sell my house in foreclosure, insert state, right? And so you're creating that article times 50 states or times 50 cities, whatever it might be. And the delta there, though, is that like a lot of people are publishing a ton of content that's actually not relevant, but they believe is relevant. They're talking about the right topics. They're talking about real estate or whatever, but it's not the keywords that they actually need to rank for. If that makes sense. So
you're talking about what the intention for what someone's Googling and what that website delivers is not. There needs to be a lot more congruence.
Yes, 100%. And what we often see is people are doing things not understanding why they're doing things when it comes to SEO. So they'll hear I got to create content, and they'll just start creating content.
I mean, we kind of see this sometimes with with YouTube, right? Like some people are like, I'm just gonna create content. Yeah. Right. And the ones that do really well, I was like, what are people searching for? Yeah. And I'll make content about that. Yeah. So it's the same thing here with SEO.
100%.
So like I get these email, junk mail. Yeah. I'm sure you're surprised by. That say we help you create AI generated content. Yeah. So that you can rank. Yeah. You're not a very big fan of those services.
Well, so I've spent probably 30 or 40 grand on OpenAI at this point, and like direct API access type stuff. And we've generated a ton of content in that direction. And what we found is that you can go that direction. You have to change the first sentence of each paragraph. You have to change the first paragraph out of OpenAI and the last paragraph out of OpenAI. If you do that, you can still use OpenAI content. The issue, though, is that at scale, once you go above 10,000 pages on a site, how Google looks at the site is very different than how a normal site would get looked at effectively. It enters like a different box in Google's land. And I would not recommend going above 10,000 pages. That's my general recommendation to everybody. Stay in that 0 to 2,000 area ideally. And then if you do that, you can tend to use more OpenAI type content. But even there, when you look at content, there's the 3 primary things. It's going to be the headers. The category 1 is like headers, alt text, file name, that kind of stuff on the pages. But also next to that, it's going to be the keyword density. Am I hitting 2% for the primary keywords that I need to go for? And the final piece is the entities, which is both the breadth and the depth. And that entity piece is what people miss on a lot. And the thing that OpenAI really, really struggles with is the keyword density part and the entities part. And you can say, hey, make this super keyword dense, but it'll always miss on the entity part, because the entity part is constantly changing in the Google SERP, and OpenAI is always 2 years behind, if that makes sense.
Explain to me what you mean by entity.
Entity would be like, so if the keyword we're trying to rank for is like sell my house fast, for example, an entity would be like paintbrush or repair or cash or house, that kind of stuff. And when we talk about breadth and depth, the breadth is the spectrum of entities that we're talking about. So that would be like paintbrush.
So here are all the words that are related
Yes.
to what they're searching for.
Yes. And so paintbrush would be like the breadth, like probably need to mention like one time in your page, maybe twice. And then the depth would be, you have to say fast at least X times on the page or have an X percentage of the total page say the word fast to really have enough concentration to do well.
Gotcha. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about SEO. So as you're talking about all this, I'm getting a little bit of like PTSD.
Sales are becoming more difficult in this market. You have more competition than ever before, and homeowners are less willing to work with you on price. More and more leads are coming to you that have listed their home with a realtor already or are talking to a realtor. Because homeowners are pitting you against yourself, you feel like you have to pay more just so you have a chance. It doesn't have to be that way. Remember what it was like when you had little to no competition? What if you could connect with a homeowner and build so much trust that they feel like nobody can compete with you? Would you close more sales? That's why I wrote Active Listening 2.0. With our book, you can develop so much trust that the homeowner won't want to work with anybody else. If you want a copy of my book, go to closemoresales.com/book and download it today.
Right. Because there was at one point a right way to rank for SEO, right? Like what appeared to be white hat tactics, right? Which is like, hey, Andrew, would you like to write blog articles on my website? And in exchange, I'm going to write blog articles on your website. And in each one of our blog articles, we're going to link to each other's website, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of have, it's not like the wheel. We knew like the wheel was definitely unethical, right? But if you have like 10 guys that are creating quality content and like linking to each other, that was something that was supposedly approved, right? And then, and also you wanted the keyword to be, the backlink, whatever, right? Or the link text, the anchor text. And so everything was fine, right? And then around 2012, sometime around there, Panda came out and Penguin came out. And like I was working up to like 1 o'clock in the morning, like almost every other night to do my own SEO. And I was ranking for all my keywords. And then overnight, everything got sandboxed, right? Like it was gone forever. Like, I mean, it wasn't gone forever. You just had to go to like the 22nd page of Google to find it.
100%.
Right, which is basically nowhere.
Yeah. And I would say a lot's changed since then. I mean, when Google looks at sites now for penalties, there's two common things that drive penalties right now. One is going to be link velocity, which is really the number of links you're sending to a site, or really to a page specifically, not to a site in general. So you could send 1 million links to a site, as long as they're spread evenly across all the pages, and there's enough pages on the site, it really won't run into link velocity issues. And the second one is anchor text. Pretty much all of the Google spam algorithms today revolve around anchor text. I mean, you saw it back then. You say sell my car or whatever, and that's the exact anchor text. And today, the thing with anchor text that's really interesting is anchor text to me I see as like an efficiency metric. So it's like, okay, if I'm trying to be really cost effective with my budget on SEO or whatever marketing in the SEO space that I'm doing, I'm going to use exact match anchor text. If I'm trying to be not as cost effective, I'm going to use naked. The difference with naked anchor text specifically is that the Google algorithm entirely ignores naked anchor text and brand anchor text, in the sense that all the spam algorithms that they use do not facilitate with those two types. They're completely ignored. And there's a really good example of this when the Yandex search algorithm was leaked. This was like a year and a half ago, which is the Russian equivalent of Google. They had the exact same type of metrics in their search algorithm. They're naked and brand, they just completely ignored it. So the power, the page rank is still passed, and in some ways the anchor text is still passed, because usually in the URL you're going to have the exact match anchor as well. So you'll say like a city page might be like We Buy Houses, Los Angeles, California, and the slug, which is still in the anchor. But because of how Google looks at the algorithm, it completely ignores that part. And so from that perspective, naked is more expensive on a short-term time horizon, but on a long-term time horizon, which is the goal of SEO typically, it's a lot more cost-effective.
So let's expand what a couple of these words are, right?
Okay.
So anchor text.
Yes. Going down the rabbit hole. So anchor text is like the hyperlink from one page to another. So if you're on a page and you see like that blue link, and it says cars or whatever, and it links to Tesla.com. That would be anchor text. The cars, that word would be the anchor text.
we buy houses in Colorado. If it was all blue and clickable, that's the anchor text.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you kind of slipped earlier the phrase or the word SERP.
Oh yeah, SERP, search engine result page. That's basically when you search something on Google, that's the SERP. The SERP includes the ad section, the 4 ads at the top in Google, the 4 ads at the bottom, and then the 8 to 10 organic free results. Sometimes there's like a Google Map result as well. Sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to this now, you learned a lot of lessons. So they're all mostly in the SEO space, those lessons you were learning.
For sure at the time. And we had a lot of, if we're going to the real estate side, we had a ton of terrible partnerships. We got money stolen from us. I mean, the classic stuff, which is why we don't do rev shares today. Why we got to pay per lead.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of our lessons earlier on were on the SEO side. And the thing for us was like, we would start one site, we'd start a rev share partnership, we'd start another site, start another rev share partnership. And by the time we were done, we had like 8 sites, 8 rev share partnerships going on. It became a nightmare to
manage.
Manage and track and keep people accountable. Because what we found too is that the best rev share partners, in terms of accountability, are not usually the best real estate investors. And the best real estate investors are not usually the most accountable to paying you. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
I would not have known that early on in my career.
Yeah.
Okay, so then talk to me about the buying houses though, right? So you bought your first one. It wasn't that so good. And then you said you bought like 20 in your first year with SEO?
No. We did a lot of wholesaling, probably 20 to 30 houses in total for wholesaling and stuff. I wouldn't say we...
So you wholesale 20 properties though?
Yeah.
Strictly from SEO?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we don't have like a 20 single family like rental portfolio or anything like that. We have one rental home.
Was this all in the DC, Richmond, Maryland area?
At the time, yeah, for that section. We've done some stuff in North Carolina, and we still do a lot of land stuff today. With like a land site going on and stuff like that. But I mean, all of that is kind of a tertiary focus to property leads as a whole.
So when did you figure out that SEO and selling leads made more sense for you as a business than wholesaling?
The cash conversion cycle is a lot better for us, and something I found with wholesaling, and this is really my own lack of skill at the end of the day when it comes to wholesaling. Like I could never nail down a really perfect sales process, and I think a big part of that for me came down to I didn't have enough times at bat. Effectively, I didn't come from selling supplements or something and rolled it into real estate or cars or whatever. So it came in very fresh there. But yeah, for us, the big thing was the cash conversion cycle. And what we also found too is that the customer, if you can find you create really good leads, the person never leaves. And so that's what we focus on the most at property leads is just keeping really, really low churn.
So how long from you buying your first rental property off MLS, so like, well, we'll just do this ourselves, to like, you know what, like let's sell this part that we do ourselves versus let's do real estate?
So I think we bought the house in like January of 2020. I think we launched the first site in like March of 2020 maybe, or we started like doing real estate stuff. Honestly, the earlier years are foggy for me, but I remember we launched property leads. We started working on property leads in March of 2022, and then actually like launched it in July of 2022.
Okay. So 22, this is a real business. You were getting money this whole time, but 22 was like, this is the business.
Yeah, effectively.
Gotcha. Propertyleads.com.
Yeah.
Was that available, or did you have to buy that?
No, it came in from another partnership we had. They happened to have the domain, so that kind of got rolled in.
Okay, so someone else that you were working with already owned it.
Yeah, effectively. But if someone else wants to start another PPL company, there's tons of really good PPL domains out there. I don't encourage you don't have to go spend a ton of money on PPL domains.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, Property Leads though is a pretty solid one.
It's a great one. Yeah.
All right. I mean, the other one I was looking at, Seller Leads. Right?
Oh, really?
That one. That one wants a lot of money. And then what was the other one I was looking at? MotivatedSellers.com. That was the other one. Right.
That's a good one.
Like there was a couple of them because like I've thought about shiny object syndrome. Yeah. I've thought about buying some of these other ones to do like a nationwide aggregator. Yeah. Right. And there was one I was looking at. I was really, really like excited about it, but I couldn't get them down from $50,000.
That's a lot of money for a domain.
It is a lot of money for a domain, right? So, what is your opinion today on the URL, the power of the URL? So, for example, right, I went on this kind of crazy run for a bit. I own ChandlerHomes.com, GilbertHomes.com, TepeHomes.com, right? Because for my realtor days, it's like, well, it will do better on it should do better on SEO, and it should do better on Google PPC. What is your experience with that?
Are you talking about specifically for exact match domains, or just domains that just include a variety of
Exact
keywords?
match.
Yeah, exact match aren't. It's tricky. Exact match is only useful if you can actually capture the entity. So conceptually speaking, like WeBuyHouses.com, right? Jeremy Brand owns it, and he's had that site for forever. He inherited from some other people as well, and they've captured the entity for that site. So he'll always rank for WeBuyHouses.com. And that was because he started 25 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever. If you try to do the same thing today for like Sell My House Fast, for example, or sellmyhousefast.com, it's a lot more difficult to do something like that. But if you're trying to rank for like a local area, like a We Buy Houses in Delaware, for example, and there's not a lot of search volume, you can kind of own the brand for that term. It's still possible. I wouldn't really go out of my way for it though. I think the core thing that I'd be looking for does the domain contain some of the primary keywords that I'm trying to rank for? Buy, sell, house, fast, cash, are the things that I'd be looking for and stuff.
Yeah, so I was in Oklahoma for a bit.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. And so I bought WeBuyOK.com.
Okay.
And we bought WeBuyOKFast.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Would those be like desirable assets to have, or does it even really matter?
I mean, my immediate reaction is I would get rid of the state abbreviation. I would switch to a regular state if I were going to go that direction. But when you say desirable, like, do you mean like, do they contain inherent value?
Is there any? Does it bring any intangible value? For example, having a house on a mountain, right? That's an intangible, right? Like I can't like go and buy another house and add a mountain to it.
Right. You can go by, I can't remember the domain. What was the domain you said?
WeBuyOK.com.
WeBuyOK.com. We can go by WeBuyOK.co and it's going to have the same effect.
Gotcha.
There's no inherent difference between the TLDs at the end of it.
Okay.
There's been a lot of testing on that, and like it's all the same at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go down this SEO journey. Has this been your primary focus then since 2020 up until today?
We started doing a lot of other marketing. Originally we wanted to be a purely search intent based, PPL company, and what we found is that's a terrible model because there's a limited number of search intent leads that can exist at any given time, and there's a lot more demand for motivated sellers than there is search intent leads that exist. And so, there's probably about 67,000 SEO leads. There's probably about 67,000 PPC leads in that scope. So 14,000 overall. Let's say a person fills out 4 forms. That's 56,000 leads roughly. There's probably about 50,000 real estate investors out there. So it's like numbers just don't add up. So we've done a ton of them marketing, really everything under the sun. And the big thing that we focused on is how do we, engage really high lead quality from other channels, whether that's forcing SMS verification or inbound phone calls or, the creative that we have to use to really kind of dial up the lead quality, if that makes sense. And that's been a big, or sometimes just removing leads that we're like, I don't think this is a good lead. We're not going to send this out. Or we'll send this to EXP or something and have them go after it instead.
So you do the SEO thing, and then you obviously can't buy $3,500 leads worth of homes a month.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to start moving these leads.
Yeah.
So how do you verify the quality of the leads
on the SEO side,
or any of the leads that you guys sell? Right. Because like there's a bit of a stigma at this exact moment.
Of course, naturally.
Right? On PPL.
Yes.
Right. And so how do you verify that the lead you're finding is a worthy lead worth buying as a real estate investor? Yeah.
So the thing that it's a 2-part question. The first part is we're looking backwards at our title transfer data. That's like the big metric that we look at. That's kind of our golden nugget. And so we're looking at how many leads that we sent. Like if we send out 10 leads, how many of those leads are actually going to end up selling their home within a 6-month time period? And we shoot for about 50%, which is right around where PPC and SEO tend to end up. If you use reasonable creative, you're not going for home value type leads and stuff.
That's what I started with.
Home value?
Yeah. What's my home worth? Yeah, that was not.
Oh no.
That was horrible. I mean, that was fortunately it wasn't too expensive. Like in 2012, like it was still really cheap.
Yeah.
You could learn a lot and like not get hurt by it.
Interesting.
In 2012.
Very interesting. And so, with that, SEO and PPC are 50%. Other channels like YouTube, for example, is probably closer to 25 to 30%. But if you dial up the creative, if you add SMS verification, if you add an inbound phone call, maybe you filter out some of the leads that say, hey, I don't have a really fast timeline to sell, or maybe they say that, they have some notification that they want to list with an agent. Maybe you filter those out and send that to somebody else, not a real estate investor. And so I think there definitely is a stigma in the industry in terms of quality. I think there are previous players that have created that stigma that some of the newer players are getting affected by. But I look at our churn rate. I think it's very healthy. When people leave for us, I don't see them leaving for the reason of lead quality. It's usually for short on funds or like I'm leaving the industry, that kind of stuff, which is more outside of our control.
Right. So you are qualifying the lead more up front.
Yes, but in an automated way. We're not screening them via phone call or anything like that.
For sure, right? But like, because there's these things that you run the risk of, right? I mean, you're saying phone number verification, so it's not even like did they put in a phone number, but you're verifying the phone number. Yeah,
so we might send like an SMS like code that they have to put into the form before they submit the form, that kind of thing.
That's not an insignificant hurdle.
No, definitely not. Yeah. And then for example, let's say they're on a landline, we'll force them to like call in and like verify if that makes sense.
What is the mechanism you're using to do that, to get them to verify?
When you say mechanism, what do you mean?
I'm on the website, right? And I type in my address.
Yep.
I'm gonna type in my phone number. They have to put in like a code to verify like this is my real number.
Yeah, Twilio has like an OTP type system that they can use. Yeah. And then for the phone verification, it's just a custom build, but it's all built in Twilio at the end of the day. Yeah. Be really cool to build a custom phone like VoIP system, but I don't think we're that cool.
Sure.
Where were we? Sorry.
Well, just how do you verify like you're doing a good job, right? Like so, like the leads you're selling, like I put my stamp, like I am proud to say this is one of our leads.
Yeah. I mean, without getting like too in the weeds on that part, it's really coming down to what has worked in the past and like can we model that towards the future. So like these are the leads, and these are the form fill-outs, and these are the verification levels, and this is the credit data that they have and stuff like that. What does it look like in the future? And then if it looks like that in the future, then like we'll model it the same way, and we'll direct some leads to pay-per-close type companies like an EXP or whatever. We'll direct some leads to the real estate investors that we believe are higher quality.
You said credit rating?
Yeah, like credit rating or consumer demographic data. How many kids are in the home? Are they married? That kind of stuff. There's a lot of data points there you can go down the rabbit hole on.
But you're pulling that data point after they submit the data, and you're comparing, or like you're having them fill it out on the website?
We pull it like in real time kind of thing.
So you pull that data.
Yeah.
So I go on your website, I put in my address and this and that. You can extract from that biometric data, or I'm on biometrics, the right word, but like all those data points.
For sure. Well, I mean, it's not, credit data is kind of funny. Like EXP, you can't get it from, not EXP, like TransUnion or anything like that, but not without certain requirements. But there's other companies that build models based on that data, and they're effectively getting the data from TransUnion.
Right. And it's funny, right? So like I can't give you TransUnion credit data, but I can model it and sell you the model.
Yeah. And where did the model come from?
Right.
So, yeah.
We reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I can't remember who I was talking to. I was like, hey, look, if you can sell me everyone that has their credit score went from a 720 to a 620 within 2 months, I will buy, that owns a home, I will buy all that data. They're like, we can't sell you that data. Like violates every terms of service agreement that we sign.
Interesting. Yeah. There's definitely that data available out there.
Yeah. But they can only sell me the model. It's like, I don't want the model of it. I want the actual people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing too, which is interesting, what you're talking about, is there's elements of machine learning, right?
For sure.
Right. Because like that's why Authentic has been good for so long, is they pull all the people data. It's like, okay, what do all the people that sold to a cash buyer have in common?
Yeah.
And then they reverse engineer that. And what's the word? Regression modeling, right? They keep running that model until say, okay, this is the most optimal model. Say these are the people that are most likely to sell to a cash buyer.
Yeah. That's very expensive to do over time.
Very expensive to do. Yeah. You have elements of that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you have to, to some extent, you can look at the form fill out to kind of determine title transfer rate, but then you also have to look at, we're just talking about the consumer demographic data, credit data, that kind of stuff, to kind of filter out. And in theory, the long-term goal is to kind of figure out, okay, which leads are investor leads, which leads are agent leads, and then kind of direct them off, directionally. Because then we can expand our marketing pool as well. We could say, okay, hey, do you just want to sell your home? But then we can tell based on, oh, this person has a tax lien on their home, they're probably pretty likely to sell off market. We'll just pass that to the investor anyway.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say we do that today by any means, but I think that's the long-term goal.
And then how are you automating the title search?
We just run a manual report every 6 months or so. And the other thing that I would say we do, related to that is like if we, people, you talked about the stigma on PPL leads. People constantly try to find where their issues are in their business. And so generally speaking, they will focus on the marketing rather than the sales and disposition process, which is, an interesting fact sometimes. And so
I've never heard a salesperson say the leads suck.
I know, yeah. And so in that process, if someone says, hey, your leads suck, like let's this place sucks.
Right.
We'll take a look at their title transfer report for the leads we've sent them, especially if they've been around for 3 or 6 months or whatever. And 99% of the time, like 50% of leads are title, they've transferred title. And they're like, oh, well, I didn't see, this one was this and this one was that. But, at the end of the day, like they're selling their home. Sometimes it'd be innovation, sometimes it's seller finance, but then they might say, oh, it's, it's a 3-2. I can only buy 4 2s or whatever. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
But, the general offer that we make to everybody is like, hey, if you come back after 6 months or 3 months of working with us and you say, hey, these leads sucked, and none of them transferred, like I can't do anything with these, and we see the same results on our title transfer report, we're going to give you big credit. We're just going to keep rolling the dice and stuff. Because the goal at the end of the day is like, can't sell a shitty product. We gotta sell something that's legitimate.
So you're saying that you're having 50% of the people that you sell the leads to investor, that they will sell their home.
Yeah. So if we send you 10 leads post refund, so after the refund policy, 50% of those will sell their home in some form. Usually it's about 25% off market, 25% on market. And there's other variances there with urban core is typically a lower title transfer rate, rural's a little bit higher. But yeah, in general. And then the tricky part for us was like, we had 25% are off market, 25% are on market, but of the ones that are on market, how many of those are actually novations right now? Because a ton of people are doing novations. The biggest teams that are buying leads right now are pretty much just doing novations.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting to watch.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then it's pretty remarkable, like that you guys do that. Again, like I think that resolves the stigma issue.
Yeah.
Of PPL.
For sure.
Right. And then I actually posted a video because we have Brandon Bateman here with Bateman Collective.
Okay.
Right. And we're in the middle. I think we released 2 out of the 5 in the PPC Masterclass series, and each one's like 40, 50 minutes.
Really?
Pretty intense.
Awesome.
And one of them, there's, an opinion on PPL that other PPL providers didn't really care for. All right.
What was the opinion?
The opinion is that like the history of PPL providers generally is that they start off hot and they build a brand and everyone says, hey, use them. And then as more and more clients come along, demand continues to go up. And in order to increase supply to match that demand, quality eventually diminishes to meet the demand.
The 2 things I would say to that, the first one is we're still small, so you can buy leads. The second one is how much you can spend on leads is really a reflection of your business model.
Right.
And so if you can't spend much on leads, then at some point you could basically say you're not a very good real estate investor, and that's okay. Right. But when people say quality drops, that just means that somebody else is paying more for shittier leads than you're willing to pay.
Yeah.
And so that just means there's somebody else in your market who's doing a better job than you. And I think
I think the perspective really was like, let's say you had 10 clients in Denver market.
Okay.
Right. How can you fulfill 10 big players in the Denver market?
I think to some extent you can't. If they're truly 10 big players where they have no budget, they'll spend whatever they want on leads. At some point, they have to either tie their bids and all work together to buy the same price, or someone's not going to get leads.
Right.
100%.
And I think that's kind of what that's kind of direction, right? It's like, if I got 10 big operators in Denver and I got 2 more clients that want to spend money in Denver, how do I satiate all of them? And the only way to satiate all of them is to provide more supply. Yeah. Right. And that's the direction we're going with that.
For sure. I got you now. I think the the big thing that we see with PPL companies as they grow is they start to switch over to SMS inbound leads, which I don't really consider to be inbound leads. I mean, we only do inbound, but some people would consider a lead to be inbound. If you send it an SMS, it has a link in it. Someone clicks on the link, they fill out the form. Now it's an inbound lead. And I think that's where you can get a lot of volume really, really fast because you can directionalize it, you can generate it same day kind of stuff.
Right.
And in the past, when it comes to quality PPL companies, that has been the detriment for a lot of them.
Yeah. So just to elaborate for everyone, what is PPL? Because we just jumped straight into it. Yeah.
PPL is pay per lead, so it's like no fees, no subscriptions, that kind of stuff. You have a set lead cost, so you know what you're going to be paying for each lead that you get. Typically, there's a refund policy, and it depends on the company and stuff, but you have a lot more control over your marketing budget in the sense that you can usually pause and unpause your account. You can change your targeting as much as you want. Unlike kind of like a PPC or direct mail campaign where once you start a PPC campaign, you can't really stop it. You got to keep it rolling without causing issues.
Right. Okay, so pay per lead. So who should not use PPL?
Someone who doesn't have enough funds, doesn't have enough nickels to rub together in the sense that they can't put together enough funds to buy 30 leads. 30 is not really when we talk about a significant, in stats, I can't forget the word right now, but 30 leads is not even enough to really show a significant difference when it comes to, can I show success with this marketing channel? But 30 leads is a good start. You can usually get a really good feel for lead quality. And I would hope that someone closes more than 1 in 30. It really should be. But that's a really good place to start. And the other person is someone who doesn't have a really well-defined acquisition or disposition process, or they're not working with a coach to help them kind of put one together.
Yeah.
If you're in that boat, at least in my experience, it'd be better to do something that has a higher repetition count, cold calling, cold texting, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you can burn through money very, very fast.
So I think it's the law of big numbers, right? The idea is like you need enough data to verify like whether this is viable or not.
100%.
And so you're saying if you can't buy 30 leads, is that within like in a month, 3 months?
Yeah. And, you can have a good time period to it. The concern is someone comes with $500, they only have $500. And that's all they can. That's all they have. And they want to buy leads in Maricopa County, and leads in Maricopa County might be a couple $100.
You might buy 2.
Yeah, you might buy 2, and that's not enough significant statistical significance is the word I was looking for earlier.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so because what's in the past has been if you're just getting started, right? There's cold calling, cold texting, or PPL because you can just kind of spend your way in as you're growing. But you're saying like if you have $500, don't start with PPL.
If you only have $500, yeah, I would not. I would definitely do a different marketing channel, potentially cold calling or cold texting or driving for dollars or something like that. Something where the money time equation is a lot more geared towards time than money.
Gotcha. And then why should someone do PPL versus, for example, just doing PPC?
Most business owners waste their time and money on solutions that never fix the root problems. They'll address all the symptoms due to slow revenue, and because they're only fixing the consequences, the real problem stays hidden and the cycle of wasting time and money continues. It's like having a lingering headache that won't go away despite trying every over-the-counter medicine. When in reality, you should have just gone to the doctor and had them figure out exactly what was causing the headache. And that's what's so difficult about business. You can see and feel the symptoms and yet struggle to find it. Now imagine you can find a prescription that doesn't just mask the symptoms, but actually addresses the root cause. Where would your business be if you addressed that right now? That's what our sales event is about. Your marketing doesn't suck, your leads aren't bad, and your operations aren't terrible. It's that you haven't addressed what actually makes you money in wholesale, which is the conversations you have with homeowners. It's critical that you build trust with sellers, demonstrate that you fully understand their situation, know exactly what's keeping them up at night, and paint the ideal outcome that leads them to a better future by working with you. That's what it takes to get signed contracts and keep your business going. Simply put, at our event, you'll walk away with the framework, phrases, questions, documents, and process to close more sales and buy more houses. Join the hundreds of others who have come to our live event and dramatically grown their business. Our event is happening soon and is available for you to join only if you're willing to take the pill.
It's an interesting question, and I think it depends on what stage of the business that they're at, and I don't think PPC is ever a bad option, except for when you don't have a very big budget and you need time flexibility. So, for example, someone who's just getting started in real estate, they still have a W-2, maybe they only want to buy leads on the weekends or at night. PPC is a really bad fit in that situation, because you get leads during the day and you're at your job. How can you call it? Speed to lead's critical. What are you going to do?
Right.
Versus a pay per lead company, you can turn on at 5 p.m. You could turn it off at 9 a.m. when you go to work. Turn on the weekends. Lead cost is typically lower on the weekends and overnight and stuff. So there's a lot more flexibility there. And then what we've also found too is that this is where it gets tricky. Is like at some price, PPL works for everybody. And so you control, you set your price. So there's not a reason to not do PPL. It's more about finding what price works for you with PPL.
Gotcha.
And everybody's price is different.
Can you elaborate on that when you say everybody's price is different?
Well, like Steve Trang might close at a crazy rate, so he can spend $500 per lead on PPC or PPL or whatever it might be, versus a new investor just getting in the market, doesn't have a huge buyer's list, doesn't really know how to do everything just yet, might only be able to spend $125.
Gotcha.
And so the discrepancy in their business is what's causing their marketing dollars to have less power.
I see. And so if we're in the same market, my bid's at 500, their bid's at 125, they're not really going to see anything either, right?
Unless you hit your budget.
Right. So I would have to max out I have to hit my total budget for the month.
Yeah.
And at that point, now they get opportunity at the 125.
Yeah. Or if you paused, let's say you're like, oh, we're turning off the marketing this weekend. I don't want any more leads. I'm off for the weekend. Suddenly he's getting the leads at 125.
Yeah. This is kind of like, a lot like, well, I guess it's I was gonna say it's kind of like Google, but no, not quite, right? Because Google is like, I'm paying 125. If the second place is bidding 125, I'm bidding 500. I'm paying 125.
Yeah.
Right. But with this right here, if I'm bidding 500, I'm paying 500.
Yeah. It's a Vic Ray auction, I think is what they call it for Google. We've actually looked at changing the model over to a Vic Ray auction. I think it'd be really fun to do that. And I think people would have a lot less skepticism over what they're paying for leads. The issue is the complexity of actually doing it in real time.
Really?
Yeah, it's I'm not sure how to describe it. Well, we look at we adjust our marketing based on what the bids currently are. But it's hard to tell what the bids currently are because they change so often. And so when people start doing a Vic Ray auction, I don't know how to explain it, but when we mapped it out, it was like one person could adjust their bid and all of a sudden bids could drop like $400. Versus in the current model, it's a lot more static, relatively.
It's a lot more predictable as a business owner. To have it go on the highest bidder. Yeah. I think psychologically. Yeah. And I think long term for game theory and customer satisfaction, the second bid. Yes. Is better for long term.
100%.
Right.
I want to move towards that model. I think that'd be really fun.
I think there's been multiple papers on like you look at eBay, right? Like there's a reason why eBay was so successful, right? Yeah. There's a reason why Google pay-per-click model is so successful, right? So it'd be interesting to see, if you guys go down that journey to see if customer satisfaction goes up. I see all your customer satisfaction, right? Like I see like Aaron Gaunt, like love that guy. He's worked with me. He's worked with Zach Booth. He's working with you guys. Awesome. Right? Like love to see how successful he is. Yeah. Right. So I think obviously it's working, but it might be something as part as the customer or the company maturation process.
For sure. I think the big question there too is like, how do you switch that model? Like, do you send an email and say, hey, in 4 weeks, it's a Vic Ray model. Like, what's a Vic Ray model?
Well, you don't have to call it that. You just call it the eBay model.
Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. The
right?
eBay model.
Everyone knows the eBay model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what are you finding as far as best practices goes for someone that's using a PPL provider like yourself?
If they're a big organization and they want to match when their sales team is available to when their leads are coming in, typically matching that time slot. So turning off their account at 5 p.m., turning it on at 9 a.m. If they're able to buy leads on the weekends, weekend leads are just a ton cheaper. Like building into their refund sequence that they need to refund the lead after 7 days if it's not responded to them yet. And the other two big things are, we're seeing novations work really, really well for a lot of the biggest teams who are spending, 70 or 100 grand a month.
Pavement said the same exact thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think like 70% of their deals are novations at this point, which is funny because it's like a net listing. It's like a legal net listing, but anyway, and then the other piece is, triple dialing. Right now, iPhones block their first call on the first attempt if it's an unknown caller. The Hyatt app blocks the first 2 calls if it's an unknown caller. Hiya is getting pre-installed on Samsungs right now. You basically have to triple dial to get through 3/4 of the U.S. at this point.
Yeah.
So people who are not doing that if when we see that get adjusted, the sales process increases a lot.
So that's fascinating, right? You got to hit the triple dial. You got to hit the and triple dial in this context is 3 attempts.
Yeah.
From one number, right? It's fascinating because
in
like
rapid succession.
It used to be like uncomfortable to do 2.
Yes.
Now
very annoying to do 3.
Now when I see a call come in, a spam call, right? It says spam likely, right?
Yeah.
And they do a second one. I was like, man, good for you. Like you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right. But now 2 is like the standard.
Yeah.
So 3.
Yeah.
You got to get to 3.
And speaking of scam likely too, that's the other big thing that people are getting hit by with the 10 DLC changes. There's a lot more when your text message number gets flagged. Often your phone will get flagged. The calling feature of your phone will get flagged. So scam likely is popping up all the time. And there's 3 sites right now you can go fill out your phone number on to get the scam likely removed. We should probably put that in the show notes or something. But I would definitely recommend people look at that and test their phone to see if they're getting the scam likely, and if they're not, if they are, filling out that form.
We've used DNC.com.
Oh, really? Is it like a paid service or?
Yeah, it's a paid service.
Okay.
What services do you recommend?
I'll send you the links. They're not in this document right here, but we can put them in the show notes. But there's like 3 sites, and one's through Hiya, one's through Verizon Direct, and the other one's through T-Mobile Direct.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure.
And then bidding on the time of the month.
Yeah, so leads tend to get a lot cheaper towards the end of the month as people start to hit their budgets. There's only so much people can spend often, and so if you're able, set that low. What works really well for a lot of people is to set a really low bid or relatively low bid. Keep your account as wide open as possible on geography and on when you're willing to accept leads, and you can typically get a really really good cost per lead. The guys who are able to spend $550, $650, crazy numbers and stuff like that, they're typically doing really complicated deals where there's like people in Boston, for example, where they're like tearing down houses and turning them into 20-unit apartment complexes, and like they don't care what the lead costs, like they just want to buy and tear down. Right. And so not everybody has that flexibility, and so just being able to extend when you're willing to buy and how you're able to buy can provide a lot of value.
Gotcha. I think one thing that might be helpful for for the people listening to have confidence in the quality of the leads. Can you jump into where the leads are coming from?
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about SEO earlier. I mean, we do a ton of SEO. We do a ton of search intent PPC as well. I'm very confident that we're the largest provider of SEO leads in the space, given that we see our sites covering out most of the SERP at this point between the agency or property leads. And search intent at the end of the day is the be all end all of best leads. And of course, we have to do other marketing to fulfill volume. But I don't see that as a negative because we're trying to match that quality back to search intent. And so, if I were looking at PPL providers today and I was trying to figure out where I would be going, I would be looking at where's the highest quality, where's the best refund rate, where's the lowest cost. Because at the end of the day, it really is a commodity. And so you're just trying to match price to price effectively, plus quality.
But like the actual leads that are coming in, are you doing your own AdWords, your own SEO?
Yeah.
So you're doing the AdWords.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there a blend between Google, Facebook, Bing? Because, like, for example, right? And I hope I don't get any kind of trouble with ZBuyer for this. So a long time ago, we used to use ZBuyer.
Yeah. $8 leads.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is even before $8 leads. Right?
Okay.
Like it was like a monthly subscription at one point.
Oh really?
Long.
Wow.
Time. I've been in this business too long. Right. And we would call these leads, and like I didn't go on any website. Like okay, like. Why do you think, like, we have to figure out, like, why do you think we reached out to you? Like, where did you input this information? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I posted my property on Craigslist a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, that's who I'm calling. Old Craigslist leads.
Oh, geez.
So,
yeah.
I'm not accusing ZBuyer of anything, just sharing the feedback I got from a homeowner. So, again, just to give people confidence, like, where are the leads coming from? The blend.
The vast majority is going to be that search intent, SEO, and PPC. We do it. I mean, we do every marketing channel under the sun, and the big thing for us is to make sure with whatever inbound marketing channel we do, we're driving towards the SEO and PPC quality, because that is our gold standard. And that's why we're looking at title transfer rate. We're not looking at lead source necessarily, because lead source is not always the greatest indicator of title transfer rate at the end of the day.
Well, we know like with Facebook leads.
Yep.
they want to sell, but they tend to be a longer sales cycle, right? Because they're a little bit early in the process because it's more disruptive.
Yeah.
Right.
It's only by about 45 days though.
Is this about 45 days?
Yeah. It's not a huge difference. Now versus like email, for example, can end up being like 9 months. You know, I think it can end up going a lot longer and stuff. But that's why.
But you're finding Facebook's 45 days. That's a lot faster.
45 days than PPC. 45 days longer than PPC.
Oh, I was going to say like 45. Like, that's not been my experience.
No. It's not. I mean, when you average out the cost per lead, it's a cash conversion problem right at the end of the day. So it depends on the business model.
Okay. So if someone wants to go check it out, so we got disruptorsleads.com, right? And you guys can check this out. Work with Andrew and his company. Let's talk about, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. Let's talk about SEO, right? 3,500 SEO leads.
Yeah.
A month. Obscene.
It's a lot.
Right?
It's a lot of the space.
What are you doing to have that kind of success?
Well, I think, by the time we launched the 10th site, I feel like we had a really good templated process to know exactly what to do. And so, through Properties, we've done a lot of that SEO. We have an agency as well, and that has been really good for people who want to have like the done for you solution. They want to have their own brand on and stuff like that. And so, I guess what's the direct question? Like, what are we doing, or like, what's the
what are the specific strategies and tactics you're applying to win SEO?
There's 3 core elements. There's the on-page side, there's the off-page side, and then there's the brand and traffic side. So on the on-page side, it's some of the stuff I can't remember if we talked about this before the podcast or after, but it's the keyword density, entities, which is the primary thing that people miss, and then the normal stuff like headers, alt tag, file name, stuff like that. And so did we talk about the keyword density and stuff that? Okay, all right, so we'll skip that part. So on the off-page side, it's the links, the naked anchor text, and that kind of stuff. We went over that. You typically have to have enough, you typically have to have about 3 to 4 links per page to get any kind of momentum at this point. But it does become a game where you're trying to go one standard deviation above everybody else on the link side. And then on the brand and traffic side, this is the big piece that is tripping people up right now, where Google is looking at sites in terms of which ones to filter, in terms of how much brand traffic they get. It's a really good real test. So like, how real is this site? How real is this company? Because a really strong SEO site with no brand traffic is just an SEO guy in his basement, versus a site with no SEO at all with really good brand traffic is a real company that needs to hire an SEO. So that's the delta right now on that side. And so
Google's looking at how much traffic are you getting?
Yeah,
just by people looking up your company name.
Yeah, brand traffic plus brand click. So brand traffic in general, not including clicks. Brand traffic into clicks, direct traffic on the site, referral traffic on the site. I mean, traffic from all different angles, because they have Google Analytics. They have the key,
Google tags.
Google tags. They have the fonts API, which is on literally every single site in the entire universe at this point.
What API?
Google Fonts.
Okay, gotcha.
Every site runs on Google Fonts. Nobody knows about it. It's like this tiny little thing, but they know when every single site gets hit for every single IP address via Google Fonts.
That's a great backdoor. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
How sneaky that was.
That's the Google special. It's all the backdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just having Google Fonts, that they can tell how many people are going there. Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. So I want to go back to the branding thing. So for example, we've got we had our house buying company, Onward Financial Solutions.
Oh.
Right. So if people are Googling Onward Financial Solutions, that tells Google that this is a company that is reputable, because they're Googling it.
It takes about 90 days. They do an entity refresh about every 90 days. It's called the Google Knowledge Graph. When you have like a GMB, that's part of the Google Knowledge Graph. It's the thing on the right side of the panel. Publish a book, you get a Google Books thing. That's the Google Knowledge Graph. And so the goal is to get your information inserted into the Google Knowledge Graph, and then you end up getting a machine readable ID, MREID. You like right click on any GMB and you go into the, or if you actually just right click on the Google search page, you search for MREID, you can find it in there. It's like this little long hex tag, and that's getting generated every single time. So they're constantly tracking, they're constantly saving every single search result page as well to see what's getting searched, what's getting clicked, etc.
So then for people that are doing direct mail, TV and whatever,
to crush on SEO. so much easier.
You've got to really lead with the brand.
Yes.
Because that's going to affect your SEO later on.
Oh yeah, we see this on the agency side, but like people who are spending on the gold standard, what we've seen is like 10 grand a month on any kind of brand type traffic, which is TV, direct mail, etc. If they're spending that kind of, and they get that around 150 to 200 searches per month on the brand side, it's so much more cost effective to do SEO for them than for other people. And at this point, we try to turn away people who don't have other brand traffic and stuff because it's just there's so much more of a randomness factor to getting inserted, and you have to much less competitive market to really get momentum. And that's not to dissuade on SEO. And I think SEO in this space is incredibly easy compared to other spaces. But the brand traffic is like so critical at this point.
So it's even more important to build the omnipresence.
Yeah, from the perspective of SEO. Yeah.
So because I knew it was important to build a brand.
Right.
I didn't know the brand affected the ranking of your SEO or how you performed.
Oh, directly. I mean, it's 90 days. Do it, 90 days, boom. If you even just search your brand, like let's say like 10,000 times, don't even click, and then you check in 90 days, I mean, you'll see a huge increase in rankings for a brief period of time.
Fascinating. So going back to like before I interrupted you, right? So your brand, right? How many people are searching your brand?
Yep.
And after that, how many people are clicking on that?
Yep.
So those
separately.
Separately. Those are 2 data points Google's looking at.
Oh, for sure.
Whether to rank your page or not.
Yeah, and then just direct traffic in general. So like, this is why when people run like PPC or Facebook traffic, we try to have them run it to a landing page on their primary domain, or ideally the homepage if they're willing, and not like a subdomain. Google looks at subdomains as a separate, unique domain, so it's
completely different URL.
Yeah, so it's irrelevant at that point.
It's annoying, but that's how they work it.
I know. And so if
just to elaborate for everyone listening, right? So like go.stevetrang.com is a completely different URL than stevetrang.com.
Yes, 100%. And so we're talking about brand. So if you're going to run ads to a site, ideally you're running that traffic to a landing page or the homepage or something like that, so you can get the direct traffic to the site. And then if you get people to click around the site and do all those other factors, it can be very helpful. And then if you do have a landing page, ideally you have internal links to other pages on that page, so you can get the so there's PageRank. Or talking conceptually, there's PageRank, which is the flow of link juice around the site. There's traffic rank, which is like the flow of traffic around the site. So when you have direct traffic to a site, Google's gonna be modeling how likely is that traffic to click over to other pages, even if they don't actually click over. So if you have like let's say you have 1,000 people going to one page every month, and you link from that page to this other page, that other page will be stronger than the rest of the pages on your site.
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of goes against the practice of what we heard before of like you want to have a landing page where they can't get distracted and click elsewhere.
Yes. I'm not saying it's good practice, but from an SEO, from a purely SEO perspective, that's what you want to do. From a purely PPC perspective, you want a subdomain, you want to be able to click off, you want to know exactly who's searching. You want to
capture 100% and they can't get distracted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's an impossible task to. You're either going for omnipresence or you're going for perfect tracking. I think at the end of the day.
Right. So something's there's trade-offs. Really, is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned a moment ago, you just want to be one standard deviation better than everyone else.
Yeah. So stats, standard deviations, which really just means like what's the statistical significance you are away from the median or the mean actually. And so let's say the search engine result page, the SERP, mentions the word fast on average 65 times, and like there's the quartile differences there. You want to be in the 75th quartile on the other end of that. Same thing with word count, same thing with pretty much every entity available. Same thing with file names, how many images you have on the site, alt text, etc. That's you can't match what your competitors are doing to rank better than them. You have to go the step beyond.
All right. So for everyone's listening, standard deviations, right? It's a bell curve. We're talking about bell curves, right? And then the mean is the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah.
Right. So if everyone on that website is saying has a density of like 10%, I should be looking for a density of like 13%.
Yeah. Effectively.
Right. So just a little bit more than everyone else. We're not a little bit, 20% more. Right. Than everyone else.
Yeah. Generally. Yeah. It averages out to that. Yeah. Sometimes there's like really big variations, and where you can run into real problems is where the SERP is serving two different unique interests. So like a good example is like there's a crack in my foundation. Okay, you could be talking about houses or you could be talking about makeup. And the SERP is completely mixed, and so like you have to figure out which one you're trying to rank for. And if you try to rank for both at the same time, you don't rank at all.
Right.
So that's the classic example.
So again, I go back to a lot of complexities here.
Yeah, SEO is not simple, and that's why I would not recommend people start with SEO when first getting into real estate.
So like if I wanted to do my own SEO, I need to go see what I got to go Google the word. I got to go Google the words. I got to go look at what my competition is doing.
Yeah.
And then I have to like use, I imagine, software to capture what they're doing. And then I can score myself against it. I used to use something, I can't remember what it was. It was SEMrush, I think is what we were using, right? To kind of see like how we're doing on our SEO versus our competition.
Yeah.
Are you using tools like that or are you using?
Try to stick with the free tools as much as possible. So there's one called SEO Quick. It's a free Chrome extension. That's just for like pure keyword density. So if you're trying to go like level 1, you're just looking at trying to get your file names, trying to get your H1s, etc. Level 2 is keyword density. SEO Quick is free, literally no cost. If you're in a low competition market, you could stop there and you can do really well, really well, because nobody else is doing it. And then the third level is the entities. There's a tool called TextRaiser. They have an API. It's very slick, and that'll help you extract all the entities on the page, and you can kind of get a volume count of each entity. And that's what I would do for the entity side.
Gotcha.
That's usually the easiest.
So headers, alt text, the specific keywords.
Yep.
And then the related keywords. Right.
Related entities. Yeah. They're no longer keywords in the sense that like they're not a term that someone's gonna be searching necessarily.
Right. But they're related to the keyword.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And so if someone were to do this on their own, like how much time does this take?
Learning it from ground zero. I mean, there's a Facebook group that I recommend joining. SE Meets REI Facebook group. There's everything we talked about here is like in that Facebook group.
What is it?
SE Meets REI, SE Meets Real Estate Investors Facebook group. It's all in there for free. I mean, there's no pitch or anything.
Yeah.
Don't even put your email address in. But within that scope, I mean, I probably say 20 to 30 hours a week for the first couple months, and then after that, you should be off to the races.
Right.
There's probably about 20 hours of content you have to really like go through to understand it, but you're gonna have to re-go through that content because I talk like this the whole time, I'm like speeding through it. Just how I talk, I guess. Gonna work on that one. But once you go through that 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times, you'll get it down.
Is this one of those things though, like where you do a really good job and then it's just maintenance?
Yeah.
Or so this isn't like I need to spend 20 hours in SEO every single week.
Definitely not. No, I mean for a good example is like sellmyhousefast.com for property leads. We haven't worked on that site in months. I mean, it's been a very long time, probably almost a year probably at this point. And that site alone does a ton of leads. So
Gotcha.
Very low maintenance after that.
You own Sell My House Fast?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very, very fortuitous.
Yeah.
Given the name of your competition.
Yeah.
Okay. So you also kind of just like snuck in there the word link juice.
Yeah. Yeah. So the common term from Google back in the day was PageRank.
Right.
Which is really just like how strong is this site over here, and then or really this page over here, and then when it links to this site, how much link juice is passed, which is really a reflection of another algorithm. It's all differential equations at the end of the day. It's all machine learning. And so it's like how many outbound links are on that page, how many outbound links are on that site, how high up on the page is my link on that site, and other factors like that. And so the goal is to get as much PageRank as possible. It's like one of the key elements, one of the 3 key elements. But without the brand and traffic as well,
right.
you're kind of toast.
But like the way I look at it, right? Like if you created your own Tumblr account, right?
Yeah.
And then you link to your site.
Yeah.
Versus CNN writing an article about you.
Yeah.
One's gonna send a lot more link juice.
For sure.
Than the other.
100%.
Right. And you want to have as many. I mean, obviously you can't just get CNN to do it, right?
Yeah.
But you want to have as many of those kind of sites.
Yeah. Doing
it versus creating your own blogs or tweeting your URL.
100%. Yeah. The difficult there's 2 elements to it. One is the level of like seed sites that you have in the space. So that'd be like a CNN type thing. And then the other one is just getting enough page rank in general. It's really hard to scale seed sites because there's not that many, maybe a couple hundred. Homelight would be a good example, or CNN or New York Times, things that are brand names, people, things that people really know. And then after that, it's really just getting links from other sources effectively to kind of boost up the site.
I know for a while, right? I like I said, my SEO dreams got crushed after Panda and Penguin. I was like, to hell with this. I'm not spending any more time on this thing. I remember something that was really popular back in the day was being an iReporter for CNN. Right.
iReporter. Okay.
Right. So basically, it wouldn't be CNN.com. It would be like iReport.cnn.com or something along those lines, right? Where you can say I was on CNN, but
it's like the old version of a press release.
Yeah. Same thing, right? And you would get the page rank, the link juice, right, from that website. Yeah. We were just saying like how like Google treats all these domains differently. Yeah. So like you wouldn't really get very much juice for that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. If you're linking off a subdomain, the same kind of, the page rank resets to 0 effectively when you're on a subdomain. So you need to not be using subdomains effectively. Right. But there is still power in links that don't have any page rank. Because every time a new page is added to the internet, that page has initial page rank effectively. Right. Because page rank, the great divider is the number of pages that are on the internet in general. So every time you add a page, you create new links.
Another practice I used to use back in the day was help a reporter out.
Yeah, super common. It's called like Connectively now. There's a bunch of other ones like Featured and Turkle, and there's some other ones as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. Those are really good free ways to get links. Very hard to scale from a time perspective. Yeah. I've done probably 1,000 horror pitches myself. Back when I first started, I thought that was the only way. You have to do just horror pitches. So I've done a ton of those. Yeah. It just becomes very difficult to scale horror after a while.
I went down that road for a bit, and what I found, there were a lot of questions that are like, these are obscure topics. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Right. B, I was talking to reporters, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of professionalism. Yeah. In that component. Yeah. And then third thing, which really killed me, is that I would do an interview with a reporter, and then they would never even publish it.
Yeah, or they publish it with no link. Yeah. And then you're like, well, that was a waste of time.
Right. Yeah. So do you still recommend going down that strategy?
You spent countless weeks going back and forth with a homeowner only to lose a deal because the seller changed their mind, another wholesaler made an unreasonable offer, or what the seller needs from the sale, you just can't pay. Now imagine you've got the ultimate control on a property that you just locked up, meaning you're on title and every decision has to go through you, eliminating virtually every external threat. That's why the installment method was created. Through installment payments, you have full control of the property as your name is now on the title. Any decision the seller wants to make now has to be approved by you. No longer can they pull out equity, go with another buyer, or change their mind. Imagine combining the best of creative finance with the flexibility of marketing the property on the MLS to collect the most amount of revenue possible, all while having total control of the property. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The concept here is simple, but implementing is challenging. So visit wholesale2024.com to learn more so that you'll never have another deal blow up.
Yeah, I think to some extent you still need Haro links or seed sites, which are really easy to get or easier to get through Haro or other type services.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then, so going back to what we were talking about earlier, so you do your own AdWords to link it into your PPL service. Yeah. So you don't do, for example, so you have your own SEO agency. Yep. But you don't have a PPC agency.
No. Just avoided that one.
Just avoided that one.
Just avoided that one.
What was the rationale behind that?
We actually started the SEO agency before Property Leads existed. It was kind of a predecessor to Property Leads, and then a great guy named Keith Sant, who loves SEO as well, and we're really good friends. He's in the real estate space as well.
He's in Seattle or
yeah. Oh, that's crazy. No.
Yeah. I met him. This is back in the day of back when they used to have, what was it? Real Estate Roundup.
Yeah.
Right, with Adam and Brent.
Yeah, Yeah.
He always liked to wear a really big hat, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's funny. I'll have to tell him that one. So he ended up. We were estimating REI, myself and my spouse Liz, and about a couple months in, we decided to work on property leads, and so he kind of took over the agency and started running that forward and stuff. And that was a really great decision because it allowed us to focus on one thing. So we kind of productized everything we do at property leads on the SEO side and kind of delivered it to estimates REI. So it's available on both sides. We're kind of equal competition in that way. The PPC agency stuff is always interesting, but it's just another business at the end of the day. And so you're adding additional complexity.
Got it. Is Keith involved in all this?
Keith's involved in the agency, not necessarily in property leads, but very.
Yeah, because we've gone back and forth on Facebook Messenger, right? Just kind of like talking about. I mean, it's not a lot, but
he's a great guy.
Yeah,
he's really awesome.
Fantastic guy, really well grounded.
Yeah.
So okay, and then is there like any particular keywords or phrases that people use that you feel like are the higher intent than others?
Yeah. So we've done a lot of data analysis on like the title transfer rate for different keywords and stuff. And so on the low end of the spectrum, you have like the cheaper words like iBuyers, for example, which is a like 30 or 40% title transfer rate, but a lot of them go on the MLS. And then
if they're searching, for example, Open Door, it's probably a retail lead. Is that what I'm hearing?
Shocker, I know, but and then in the middle of the pack is that Sell My House Fast and We Buy Houses type keyword, and those tend to transfer around the 50% mark, and about half go on market, half go off market. We Buy Houses inches out Sell My House Fast just a little bit. And then on the top of the spectrum is that We Buy Ugly Houses type keyword. And that is like a banger of a keyword. It's 65, 70% title transfer rate. And then it's like 80% or 70 or 80% is off market. But your cost per click is like $100. Your cost per lead is like $900. That one's really, really expensive. And then in the middle too, there's different nuances there as well. Like if people are searching cash, title transfer off market tends to be higher than if they don't search cash. Like cash is higher than fast, for example. Other nuances like that. And the other big thing that we found out too is like we spent a lot of time trying to figure out the Spanish seller game, and I would not recommend doing that. They often go on the market. They do not like to work off market. Their title transfer rate is lower. They tend to want to sell within their community as well. You can see the same thing for everybody who has a immigrant or community really
non-American.
Yeah, non-American or community background in some form. Not a bad thing or good thing. Just it is what it is. So going after those like Vender Mi Casa Rapido and like Compramos Casas, like cut it. I would not recommend that.
Yeah, I bought compromoscasas.cash.
No, really?
All right. And that did not go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got an SEO side in the Spanish bit, like Vender Mi Casa Rapido. You like 10 to 20 leads a month maybe. But you look at the leads and it's like I can't even read them. Like I don't know what I'm looking at. That one.
So We Buy Ugly Houses does really well.
Yeah, they've got a great. I mean,
they built a brand.
They built a brand.
Yeah.
And then within that scope too. Sell My Ugly House as well actually is a really common keyword that kind of falls in that same category and stuff. But when we look at PPC as a whole, what I like to look at a lot is the title transfer, the words that we're actually trying to buy clicks on effectively. It's a multi-part problem because when you look at Google Ads, you have trying to shorten the feedback cycle back to Google. You're trying to feed better conversions back to Google, trying to feed back the ones that were not actually conversions, etc. But at some point, you have to feedback. It's difficult to feedback which ones actually turned into deals because once you stretch out that time horizon so far, Google is very lossy, not very lossy in that way. So looking at the keywords after the fact and adjusting what keywords we buy on based on the title transfer rate has become very fortuitous.
You get any trouble ever with the We Buy Ugly Houses guys?
Not yet.
No?
Avoiding it.
So I did.
Uh-oh.
Right. And so I had to figure out. So I can't, I did a lot of keyword match. If they Googled this, my headline said that. Or I might have thrown some words into it, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there was a really, really strong keyword match on the, what's it called when you use the phrase?
Phrase match?
Phrase match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was always in phrase match, right?
Okay. But
I wasn't allowed to do it.
Really?
If they were doing We Buy Ugly Houses.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Because now we're infringing on their trademark.
Yeah.
So my keyword group was, instead of, if they were in that keyword group, the result was We Buy Ugly Homes.
Oh, that's smart.
to violate, or not to violate, to get around
Interesting.
their trademark.
That work?
Yeah. And the problems after that, right? Because they didn't trademark We Buy Ugly Homes. They just trademarked We Buy Ugly Houses.
Interesting.
So that was my workaround.
That's
so
a good
to
workaround.
get out of
No, that's a good
trouble.
workaround. Really good
But
workaround.
it's still, when you went on the site, it had the ugly red and yellow. Like,
Yeah.
it still looked like that. I didn't have their caveman, but the brand feel on that website.
Yeah.
Very much like a
Yeah.
like a homevestor site.
Yeah.
And then the keywords, and we didn't ever say We Buy Ugly Houses. Everything was We Buy Ugly Homes.
Yeah. But it's tough to be a home investor's client too, in that sense, because the leads are very expensive internally to the company. So I love working with those guys because they're all in. You know, they're franchised, they're ready to go, they're ready to do deals. So I've enjoyed my experience with them.
Yeah.
They're good on the ground.
So you work with homevestor clients?
Not officially, no.
Yeah.
Definitely not officially.
Yeah. Well, because I tried. I had serious conversations with them, right? Because like they skyrocketed at some point, right? And then when the recession occurred in 08, 09, they crashed.
Really?
Yeah, they crashed so badly they actually had to sell their company, right? So like there were only 2 homevestor franchises in the Phoenix market. I think there's still like 30 now, but there's only 2.
Wow.
Right? At that time, the owner, because I was looking at the franchise stocks, because I was really seriously considering buying one. And the only reason why I didn't was they're like, well, you have to pay us our franchise royalty on every house you buy. It's like, but I already market. Like, why would I buy a franchise? I'm already marketing. I'm already doing my own PPC and, and SEO for this and that. Why would I pay you guys? So I didn't agree to it, right? For that very specific reason, because I didn't want to pay on deals I sourced my own.
Yeah.
Looking back, I probably should, but that's besides the point. When I was looking at all the franchise documents, right? It was Subway. It was Doctor and Associates, right? And that's the Subway umbrella.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the guys that own Subway
Really?
bought the Homevestor. Now they've since sold it, right? Someone else owns the Homevestor franchise branding now.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating to me when I was looking at it to potentially buy. I was like, interesting. Like looking at buying a company that's owned by Subway.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Huh. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good history.
Yeah. So I've been around the block. So what have been some of so we talked about how to find, how to work with you guys, right? Property Leads, disruptorleads.com. Talk about the SEO. So you're sourcing it from your own PPC and SEO predominantly.
Yep.
What have been some of your biggest challenges in fulfilling for your PPL service?
We've constantly had a lead volume problem. I think that's been the biggest thing is there's constant demand for more, and we're trying to, how do you generate leads that are not really crappy? And you fall into the same problems that we talked about earlier. I think that's been the biggest problem overall. I think if I had one regret, I think it inevitably quality does have to drop, and so you have to end up setting a lower price point. And so if I were to do it again, I might have set the barrier a little bit lower at the beginning. But at this point, we have to be the higher quality one because that's at this point that's what we're known for.
Yeah.
And so we're stuck there. We're gonna get limited in volume at some point. That's the problem.
So your volume limited.
Yeah.
Is that the end of the world though? If you're volume limited, because you could charge more
for sure.
Right. I mean, what? Again, from what it appears on the outside, a lot of PPL companies, as demand goes up, let's go find more supply.
Yeah.
But the other thing you can do is just raise prices to meet demand.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the pinnacle lead buyer is going to inevitably be somebody who doesn't even care about wholesaling. They just want to buy houses,
right,
and they want to hold on to them, and they don't really care how much it costs because they're comparing it to the MLS at that point.
Right.
Now, the percentage of those people who work with today compared to the population in general is relatively low. But I think given enough time, that's where it inevitably.
Maybe you look at direct mail, right?
Yeah.
Cost per contract. I think it's not unusual to be at 10,000.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
But they'll make 70.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal to spend 10,000.
Yeah.
So
we've also found too that people who are coming from outbound channels and coming into an inbound channel have had a lot of issues because they're not used to having to call back the lead right away, which has been fascinating. They're like, oh, I got a lead. I'll call it tomorrow. We'll talk to them tomorrow. But I think that's been a big challenge as well. I think the finalized thing on that point is we refund for no response leads, and that is the most tedious Nobody refunds for no response. Like I think it's just us. Maybe there's others, but I think it's just us. And I would say about 30% of leads that get refunded from that channel, we end up having to decline because we'll contact them and they'll say, yeah, Andy, I do want to sell my house for cash. And I did not hear from anybody. What is going on? And I'm like, this guy said he contacted you 28 times. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you talk to, the person, they're like, oh, well, my grandmother was sick. And like, they've, a ton of excuses or maybe something did happen and maybe their phone was marked as scam likely. Yeah. But that's been a really big hurdle. I mean, there's a lot of people who are refunding for no response, and typically it's just an evaluation of their sales process at that point, their follow-up process.
We had Scott Morse here with Lamasu Leads. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he has a policy. Like, if you're not in a mastermind or you're not paying for a coach, you're not allowed to buy my service.
Really?
That's his policy, right? Because what he found was, like, I mean, it's not cheap.
Really?
Right? He's not cheap. He's not inexpensive, right? But everyone that uses him has a very high ROI. So he'd rather just limit who can qualify for his product,
and
then have happy clients, than to bring on more people. And now he's got to babysit them, listen to their complaints, see how they're not getting the volume that they want out of it. Yeah. And then he goes in there and is like, well, what about this, this, and this, and this? And they're like, oh, we weren't doing those things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 100%. And I think the other thing too, when I think about that, is like we have a very low barrier to entry. Like we don't require like some $8,000 upfront deposit or 7 months prepaid or whatever. It's usually like 2 leads. So it might be like a couple $100, let's say. Yeah. And so that sometimes allows people in who are not necessarily qualified to buy leads yet. And so we've been working on that to clean those up.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of opportunities to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Make some tweaks and adjustments.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Tons of room for improvement. Constant improvement.
So again, guys, you guys are interested in working with Andrew, disruptorsleads.com. What message would you like to leave everyone that's listening? What message would you like to leave them with?
Oh my gosh, please triple dial. Please triple dial. And please make sure that your phone's not getting marked as spam likely. That is absolutely crucifying people right now. And if everybody made that one change, people would do a ton better. But yeah, we'd be happy to work with you, happy to talk with you, and excited to catch up.
If someone want to reach out to you directly, how could they get a hold of you?
Facebook. Just search for Andy Kolodgie from me on Facebook and give me a message.
Yeah, make sure you get that spelling right.
Oh, ANDYKOLODGIE.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.